I'm here to highlight something that is keeping me up at night. And I know this group really understands what I'm about to say. I know we're all focused on the 2022 midterm elections, and they are incredibly important. But we also have to look ahead, because you know what? Our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election. And they're not making a secret of it. The right-wing controlled Supreme Court may be poised to rule on giving state legislatures, yes, you heard me that correctly, state legislatures the power to overturn presidential elections. Just think, if that happens, the 2024 presidential election could be decided not by the popular vote or even by the anachronistic Electoral College, but by state legislatures, many of them Republican-controlled. But there's also good news in the face of this very real threat to democracy. Indivisible has launched Crush the Coup to make sure we're ready to defend democracy in 2024. They've put together a list of critical races in 6 key states and how you can get involved. Will you support Crush the Coup by donating to Indivisible and state legislature candidates? Each of these races is highly competitive, and your dollars could very well decide the winners and the winner of the next presidential election. This could not be more important or more urgent.
The other thing that I've thought about is my friends who have come from communist countries, whether it's Cambodia, China, Vietnam, my friends who've come from totalitarian regimes in Venezuela and Cuba. These people came here because of what we have to offer in our country. If we, the last bastion of hope, are not going to have a commitment against communism and tyranny, we're going to be no better than what Joseph Stalin said. Remember, he said, we allow the people to cast the votes, but we decide who is elected.
All right, party people, greetings and grace to you. It's your girl here, Clarity Speaks, popping into your timeline with another stream of my consciousness and another episode of A Reasonable Black Woman Reacts. And today I am reacting to something that has been burning my biscuits for going on 3 years. Okay, I'm talking about the tired, through, and delayed media narrative, mainstream media narrative, and that includes Fox News, around January the 6th, around election 2020, and around the real reason why people showed up in droves on January the 6th. The information that I'm about to drop right now is going to vindicate the people that were there on January the 6th, because it's going to show you exactly why they were there. And after you get done watching this, you're going to realize why CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all of your major outlets did not dare air any of this. To see this, you would have had to been a conservative to be aware of it and to watch conservative news outlets that were popping up all over the place in 2020 because of the suppression of information. Conservatives were being censored blatantly, especially in 2020, in trying to get this information out to the public. And that is why Rumble came on the scene. Rumble had to come on the scene to become an outlet. And the only place that you're going to find this information now is on Rumble. And if you Google this information, you're only going to find information that is favoring the Democrat narrative. It's going to continue to make Trump supporters look deranged and crazy and conspiratorial and all of this stuff. But this is not conspiracy. This is a real Georgia State Senate hearing with people, poll workers, poll officials and voters who showed up to testify with sworn affidavits. Okay? In Georgia alone, there were like 900 sworn affidavits. In just Georgia alone, not to mention the video evidence and the data analyst evidence that's clocking the fraud as it actually happened. Okay? And Republicans sat by and did nothing. They echo the left's narrative all of these years, and then they, play the middle because they're not quite sure if Donald Trump is going to make it. So they have to kind of halfway keep one foot in and one foot out so as to, be able to get the MAGA vote just in case he rises like the phoenix again. I mean, he's like baby kids right now. He just multiplies. He keeps rising like the phoenix, and they keep thinking that they're done with him, and he keeps coming back. So it's burning their biscuits as well. Donald Trump is, and they're in a big, huge conundrum. They thought they would get rid of him, and he's still at play. Okay, he's still at play. And so now the coast is kind of clear, and the Republicans are halfway ready to admit that there's election fraud. And that is another motivation for me putting this video out, hoping that this could be a catalyst, a trigger for people to hear and do the right thing. I cannot believe these Georgia lawmakers. And now it's coming out that the Secretary of State did do some fraudulent things, as if it wasn't suspicious and obvious in 2020. Why did we ignore that, Georgia? And why did the Georgia voters allow this? And I would know why I know why, because they were unaware. And that's part of, again, why I'm putting this video out here. So much information has been suppressed. And speaking of suppression, the reason that people showed up on January the 6th and the reason that the insurrection actually happened was so that the lawmakers who had pledged that day to not certify the election due to all of this evidence that I'm about to show you. There was evidence across all of these swing states. As I said, only in Georgia was up to 900 affidavits, not to mention all the other people that were testifying in the other states during that 2-week period. The reason that the insurrection had to occur was to get those lawmakers out of that building so that they would not see and hear this evidence. As you will see, it was reported by, I want to say like Newsmax or something like that. The Trump team was saying, hey, on January the 6th, we're going to present all of our findings and all of our evidence. We're going to present this video of the people pulling the stuff out of the under the table. We're going to present the data analysts here clocking it. We're going to present the poll workers clocking and showing you how the voting machines change. We're going to present to you all of the voters and all of the affidavits, senators, right? So they had to stop that baby. So they had to create a chaotic event. And we Republicans are so stupid. We played right into their hands. We were none the wiser. We just don't. Basically, Democrats are playing chess and we over here playing checkers. They're always one move ahead. They know the conservative base and how we think. Okay? And so Republicans are just playing too nice, or they're dumb. And I don't believe that they're that dumb, by the way. But that's the tea, guys. They had to create a chaotic event to get them out. And they planned it because, again, we letting our left hand know what our right hand is doing. Trump is announcing, Sidney Powell and everybody's telling what they found. And the Democrats like, oh snap. We gotta activate like Voltron here. We gotta pull all the stops here. We gotta call on Antifa, BLM. We gotta get our folks in the FBI and everybody to come up with the plan to pose as MAGA supporters and get a little riot going, get a little commotion going here, so that we can blame it on them. That's gonna be easy peasy. That's easy peasy. because we got the media and everybody, in the tank, the well of public opinion about about Republicans and conservatives, especially, in the wake of Donald Trump and his bombastic personality. I mean, we got that in the bag. We already got people believing that they're crazy and that he's orange man bad, So all we got to do is just create this quick commotion here, because we cannot let the people know that we just lied to them, that Joe Biden won. We cannot let the people or these senators that have pledged see this evidence. So what we can do, since it's not out in the public domain, we can continue to deny that it actually exists, or we can just say it was not enough to actually change the outcome of the election. It's just regular, normal election irregularities, within the margin of error. Joe Biden won fair and square. There's no funny business here, nothing to see. Republicans also picked up and ran with that narrative as well when the heat got on them after January the 6th. There was, let's hurry up and forget about it. Let's move on. Was a Republican narrative. And you can see with some of the posture of these Georgia lawmakers in here who were listening to it like they were listening to a freaking PowerPoint presentation, when they should have had the sheriffs pulling up, especially when, as you will see, one of the people came again and clocked the fraud happening in real time with the voting machines. There was enough evidence presented right here in Georgia alone to have been the linchpin, to have straightened everything out with our election integrity issues and put everything in play. They could have led the nation in that. There's enough evidence here that the sheriff should have been called. And every Georgia voter who sat by, and particularly, and I'm talking Republican, because again, most of the public and Georgia voters are unaware of this information. And that's again why I'm doing this. But I'm talking to the Georgia Republicans. Okay? Those who are in the know, who also started adopting all of the narratives that came down from the RNC, because nobody wanted to look conspiratorial or whatever. Uncourageous you are. Shame on you. And you want to, focus on other issues. And we're going to win 2022. How are you going to win 2022 when we still got the same voting machines that are capable of cheating? When we haven't even addressed the 2020 election? How is it burned my biscuits. I'm listening to these Republican pundits and Republican officials at the state level, local level, and all this sort of thing, making plans about elections 2022, 2024, and we ain't even dealt with this. How am I supposed to have faith in this election system when you haven't even had the courage to deal with this right here? This is real evidence that you guys looked in the face and pretended like it didn't exist. And now you want to circle back 3 years later and halfway admit it and deal with it, and still are not dealing with it. Because in order to actually deal with it, you're going to have to, it's going to be exposed that you have been at the very least complicit or part of the scam. Brian Kemp.
So moving on from December 3rd in Georgia Senate's election fraud hearing, that was, of course, about a month ago, they discussed the biggest key points, suitcases full of ballots. Of course, on my very first video, I discussed all of those were being pulled out from below tables that had skirts on them, and they began counting them after they set their poll watchers home. Absolutely insane about the water leak. They didn't damage any ballots. They didn't find that there was actually a water leak, even though it was reported, and that was another excuse that they used to send the poll watchers home.
About 8 o'clock in the morning, we're going to roll this back and show it to you. There you go. So now they're going to start pulling these ballots out from under this table. This table, the black one, was placed there by the lady with the blonde braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning. So she put that table there. So the same person who's staying behind now, the same person who cleared the place out under the pretense that we're going to stop counting, is the person who put the table there at 8:22 in the morning. Yeah, I saw 4 suitcases come out from underneath the table. Yeah, upper right hand, you see the gentleman in the red. So he just pulled one out. So what are these ballots doing there, separate from all the other ballots? And why are they only counting them whenever the place is cleared out with no witnesses? Is the question. So these machines can process about 3,000 ballots an hour. You have multiple machines there, and they're there for 2 hours. So you do the math. How many ballots went through those machines in those 2 hours when there was no one there to supervise, to be present, consistent with your statutes and rules, to supervise the tabulation? We believe that could easily be, and probably is certainly, beyond the margin of victory in this race.
Now, if that was not enough to convince you that this is not some right-wing conspiracy, consider that this sort of funny business was happening across about 5-6 swing states at the same hour. There was a lot of funny business going on in these swing states about the same hour, not to mention the funny business with the voting machine, which is going to be the subject of the next few clips here. What voters should know about these machines is first the origin of them. Where do they come from? Who manufactures them? If you look it up, you will find that they are connected with companies here in America. I want to say Austin, Texas, and one other American country. Although there's word on the street that relative to investments, China is invested in this company. The company is called Dominion Voting Machines. And there's also word on the street that these are the same machines that are used in communist countries, right, who have an interest in doing what Ms. Voyles said at the very beginning of the video, giving the illusion to voters that they're actually voting, but the machines being able to be manipulated behind the scenes to change the vote to the person that has been predetermined to be installed, as opposed to elected as whatever official, be it president or whatever. So I don't know for sure what's what with that. However, we got evidence, though, that these voting machines are able to be tampered with, that they are able to connect to the internet so people can remotely hack into them and do whatever they want to do with them. There's also evidence of the people at the polls being able to also switch votes from Biden to Trump at will, right? That's all I need to know. That's all I need to know. We don't need those sorts of voting machines. And it was very suspicious that Brian Kemp, Secretary of State, decided to go into some sort of deal to purchase all of these machines for the 2020 election. And not typically, but it seems that all of the states that had problems with votes were using those machines. So the Dominion voting machines, you need to find out if your polling place are using Dominion voting machines. If they're using Dominion voting machines, you as a voter need to say, hell to the no. Get that out of my polling center. We're not using those, okay? And when you finish watching what I'm about to show you, you're going to see why, all right? And also, if you decide to go fact check, right, Dominion voting machines using Google, you're going to find information that is going to counteract what I'm saying, because according to Google fact check and all of the fact checks from the mainstream media sources, even social media sources, are going to tell you that this is some right-wing conspiracy. And all I can tell you is that whatever the mainstream media is telling you is false, is true, and whatever they're telling you is true, is false. That's how you need to operate and think when you are getting information from the mainstream media, right? Because they have the big idea that just because they slap "I fact checked" something on it, that is credible, right? They know that the voting public is so low vibrational, so low information, so low on their attention span, that if they see something that has been fact checked, it's reliable. But no, It's not. This video of the actual evidence of these data analysts who telling you we don't have a dog in the fight. Okay, we only telling you about the data. That's all we care about. The data does not lie. So you don't believe me? Let's watch the data analysts here clock the switching of the votes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for sticking through this. My name is Linda McLaughlin. I have a background in politics and media. I have an MBA in business, and I am a part of the Data Integrity Group. One of the things that we have unfortunately seen is that no one has presented data. We hope to remedy that this afternoon. I'll be introducing my two colleagues here, Dave LeBoux and Justin Mealy, both of who are data scientists, and we will look at data. Please understand that data is numerical. It is not partisan. It has no red or blue attached to it. It is just numbers, and numbers is all we need to prove what we're trying to tell you today. I'll turn it over to Justin.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us to speak here. My name is Justin Mealy. I'm a 9.5-year veteran of the U.S. Navy as an electronic warfare technician and Arabic linguist, 4 years of which I spent at your very own Fort Gordon in Augusta. Then after that, a CIA contractor as a data analyst, programmer for the National Counterterrorism Center, and then now currently work for one of the big four accounting firms as a programmer, data scientist, everything in between. Okay. So the first thing I want to say real quick is that what we're not here to speak about, we're not here to speak about dead voters, illegal votes, out-of-state voters, that type of thing, right? Because although that might have happened and it might have affected the election, we can't prove it from a data perspective that because a dead voter voted, that they voted for Joe Biden. So because of that, we've thrown out that type of thing. We're only here to talk about hard data. So when you do hard data analysis, the most important thing you can ask is, what data are you analyzing? So we use three separate data sources, right? The first data source comes from the New York Times as a JSON feed. It's called the Edison data source. And that Edison data feed is a time series based data. When I say time series, I mean you have different vote releases at different intervals, and we can kind of see that votes are incremented at different intervals, right? Then the second data source actually feeds that data source, which you're going to see in the video that's coming. That second data source is the CITL data source. That CITL data source kind of bifurcates that data and sends sends the data exactly to the Edison data feed and sends that to the Secretary of State. So your Secretary of State's data that you're actually basing the certification process off of is that CITL data for all intents and purposes. Now, because the Secretary of State data gets it after the CITL server, what happens then is the Secretary of State could possibly change that. So we use a third data source, which is the Secretary of State data, to verify that the data totals down all the way down the line. Okay. So with that being said, there was a question earlier I heard from a senator where he asked something about, how many votes did something happen? How many votes, was it enough to change the election for Donald Trump or whatever like that, right? And I want to say that just about that question in particular, I think the person answered there were about 50 votes, 100 votes, that type of thing. I want to answer that question in particular to say that any change in that data set, you see, if there was a fraudulent activity that occurred, then you're looking at post-fraudulent data. Okay, so if I went into my calculator and I entered in 1 + 1 + 2, right, and then I got -6 at the end, from a time series perspective, I'm going to see 0 and I'm going to see -6, and I will never have seen all the data that happened in between. So that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about data. Okay, that being said, the thing I want to kind of conclude on before I turn over to David is that what we have here is we actually have fraud that we can prove in this election. There was fraud in Georgia's election. We can prove it with data. And because we can prove it with data, the voting will of the people of Georgia is not reflected in what was certified by the Secretary of State.
Well, party people, you just heard it for yourself. And again, the question that he was answering corroborates what I've been saying about the narrative within Republican camps, that there was not enough election fraud to actually change the election. So one of the senators there posed that question directly because that is and has been the narrative among low-key the never Trumpers, the quiet as it's kept never Trumpers, right? I'm not sure if that senator who asked that question was really a never Trumper, if he was asking it to verify his own bias, or if he was asking it like I would have asked it. come on, you know what I'm saying? Give us the evidence here, which he just did. So now, Never Trumpers, you guys need to put it to rest. It's clear.
So Dave is our lead data scientist, and go ahead.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you everyone for inviting us here today to speak. I'm Dave LeBeau, a data scientist with over a decade of experience working directly with structured and unstructured data across a number of industries, specialized in machine learning and more recently artificial intelligence. I've worked with a multitude of data structures in the financial services, telecommunications, and in primary research consulting industries. The analysis we're going to be reviewing is purely scientific and not based on any political affiliation, red, blue, left, or right. We objectively focus on numbers, data, and machine network systems. Based on our extensive analysis across precinct, county, and state voting results, we've identified over 40 data points where negative voting or outright vote switching across candidates has totaled over 200,000 votes. Separately, we've applied machine learning algorithms that are regularly used for anomaly detection of fraud in financial services that flagged over 500 precincts with over 1 million corresponding votes that exhibited suspicious activity. So what's important to note here is that in alignment with standard fraud investigations, we've applied a rigorous, systematic, and sophisticated process that has consistently identified data points that other industries, including financial services, would label as suspicious activity or definitively declare fraudulent. So I'll pause and with this in mind, I want to make this a little bit more relatable. And if you can take a moment just to think about how your online banking experience works. You probably have a checking, savings, and credit card account all on a single screen. Your online banking is designed so that built into this website interface is a back-end connection to a database. And this will store all of your balances, including your deposits or withdrawals. So you can review your statement each month or in real time confirm that the transactions you made are accurate and true. So imagine now you logged into your account on November 5th and you noticed that there were something to the magnitude of 50 transfers across your accounts. Let's say you even deposited a few checks on the 3rd and 4th, and you would expect to see these transactions for each of the individual amounts you deposited. Now, instead, imagine your activity reflects these deposits going into your account, then being switched to a checking account, sometimes as an exact dollar amount, and other times being broken apart into slices and switched intermittently across different slice magnitudes. Now, this is obviously strange in itself and deeply concerning from a data integrity standpoint. Now, also imagine that some of these deductions are sent externally, and so the money is leaving your account entirely. You can see the exact amount that it's deducted and where it was sent that you did not authorize. So this is what we have identified within the voting system data that has been confirmed to align with the Secretary of State data that's used to certify these election results. The data is freely available to the public, but does require some advanced programming skills to extract, parse, and join these data sets in order to bring these types of insights to light. We're part of an independent team that has, in the spirit of transparency, made all of our analysis, programs, and data public so anyone can independently replicate. We've also put out a series of videos that help translate some of our more complicated analysis, which we're going to play here, that will help reinforce the message and maybe a different point of view that will help make these concepts more digestible.
Receiving over 90% in a precinct is a marker for fraud. In Fulton County alone, we can see that more than 150 precincts voted 90% or more for Biden. In the statewide race that was decided by less than 13,000 votes, these 150 Fulton precincts alone accounted for 152,000 Biden votes. This is a clear indicator of suspicious or outright fraudulent activity.
We've scanned 113,130 as of moments ago. We've adjudicated 106,000 plus of those.
Adjudication, the process of reviewing a ballot that may have been flagged during the ballot scanning process.
The only ballots that are adjudicated are if we have a ballot with a contest on it in which there's some question as to how the computer reads it. So the vote review panel then determines voter intent.
In 94 precincts in DeKalb County, it is statistically impossible to have 9 out of 10 voters voting for Joe Biden.
We've just seen a few examples of statistical irregularities and impossibilities. Now, we'll take a closer look at some vote manipulation within the election database, including explicit vote count switching from one candidate to another.
We can see in Dodge County, there's a lot of strange activity going on. The left side of the screen shows incremental votes as they were reported for both election day and absentee. On the right, we can see the total vote counts, which should only be incremental, moving as the county reported in real time. Again, here we're focusing only on Donald Trump's votes. So this wouldn't necessarily be captured at the state totals as they're reported on TV, since one county's deduction in votes can be offset by another county's reporting of equal or greater votes. The first question you're going to want to ask, or already have asked, is why are any bars going negative? And the answer is they shouldn't. Unbeknownst to the general public, votes for Donald Trump were being switched and removed from his total, which often coincided with other precinct updates that simultaneously offset deductions so that they appeared to remain neutral to outside observers. Across the three counties of Dodge, Daughtry, and Putnam, Trump has over 30,000 votes that simply disappear. Here, we have clear visibility of an event that occurred at the county level as we compare two data sources. In this case, Donald Trump reported 29,391 votes at 9/11 local time in Bibb County, Georgia. Simultaneously, Joe Biden was reported to have 17,218 votes. Minutes later, at the next reported time update from the precinct data sources, Donald Trump is reported to have 17,218 votes, and Biden now has 29,391 votes. A clear and exact switch of vote totals between candidates. Because there is a time lag between each state reported aggregation of county results, this type of switch can go undetected in state reporting, as long as it falls after the latest state refresh and before the next state update.
According to the Georgia Secretary of State website, Trump lost by 12,670 votes. As you saw earlier in this video, far more than that were taken from President Trump. In statistics, an anomaly or outlier is an observation or event that deviates so much from other events that it arouses suspicions in its generation. In this, an isolation forced is defined as a specialized learning algorithm for anomaly detection that works to the principle of isolating these outliers and flagging them for potential review. Remember these graphs when you meet your government officials in person. The burden of proof is on the system to prove our elections were fair, and not the people.
Okay, so here's how your vote is counted in Georgia using Fulton County's process as an example. So after you check in at a poll pad to vote on election day, you go to an ImageCast precinct terminal. After you cast your vote, a ballot image is saved on the machine. And after all the polls close, the SD cards containing all the ballot images are removed from the terminals and transported by car to, in Fulton County, one of 4 drop-off locations. Then it's transferred by police escort to the 1365 English Street warehouse. Inside of there, it is run through a tabulation software called Democracy Suite, which counts the ballots and exports the totals to a Dominion server that inserts those totals into a SQL Server database. From that point, it's directly transmitted to the CITL Election Night Reporting Server. The Election Night Reporting Server is responsible for transmitting the totals to the Secretary of State for output to their website, and data aggregators like Edison, who then transmit that data to the networks.
As you just saw, there's a standard process for transferring votes by memory card from precinct to county vote aggregators. Now, let's focus specifically on this square box detailing the data entry process for county updates. The following options are available to anyone with access to these computers working in the election software: updating vote batches, rejecting vote batches, and even more notable, generating new or temporary batches that can be injected directly into the vote tally. Each of these options can then be validated and published into the system. Again, anyone working in the election software at this point has the power to manipulate large batches of votes. And all of this is before the data is even uploaded to the server.
What should have happened during the validation process? Were there 2 observers from both parties present for the transmission of the SD card? Were there 2 observers from both parties present in the car when the votes were taken to the drop-off locations? Is there a public log of these exchanges at the various drop-off points and locations? Why are elected officials not asking these questions about our most sacred right to vote?
Okay, so real quick, I just want to jump in there. And if you can go back to that chart I want to reference two things on there. I'm sorry, the diagram. Okay, so in this diagram here, as I was telling you earlier, we use this CITL source, the election night reporting source. We have their data for all of Georgia. As also, we have the data that comes from the New York Times, or the New York Times Edison part on the right side there, right? And for all intents and purposes, that election night reporting is going from there directly to the Secretary of State. Right? This is the same data. It's the exact same data. Now, the thing is that in every single aspect of this chart, from the poll pad, which doesn't really affect the thing, to the ballot marking device, more importantly, these actual ballot marking devices on the precincts, when they are tabulated at the end of the polling period, and the kind of these SD cards are removed, or sort of the compact flash drives are removed, they're transmitted by person to these drop-off points, tabulated, and so on and so forth. This whole process is a machine-to-machine transfer for all intents and purposes, using humans as a medium, but at the same time, you're not having people enter, for instance, into a spreadsheet, these totals. Because you're not having people enter these totals into a spreadsheet, that removes the entire layer and the entire argument for any kind of human entry error, because there's no human being entering anything anywhere in here. You can't show me a place where a human being enters stuff in here. Now, if there were a human being entering something in there, then that would point to a type of fraud, or a fraud aspect of this whole thing. So the point is that our data that's showing these negative drops is coming from a machine-to-machine source. There's no reason that at any point something should be subtracted. And I want to make that very, very clear, that at no point in an incremental process should you decrement. Dave?
Are there any questions? No. Sorry.
To add to that too, I wanted to highlight just very quickly. I know we're short on time, but we mentioned the RTR software options in the video, and what's important here is that this is built into the software itself, so that when anyone logs into their Windows or Apple machines, you have a certain set of maybe you have parental controls on there for children, but in this particular case, there's no overarching controls, and this type of flexibility of options you see here on that 1 through 4 is available. So there's a situation where new batches can be recreated, you can reject, which is outside of this typical chain of sequence within this network diagram, where votes should go in at the polling locations. Votes should be counted at the absentee counting locations and through SD cards, and only in extreme situations, if there was an adjudication, are those processes should they be altered. And the fact that this exists anywhere within this sort of sequential supply is a vulnerability in the overall system. So this is here to identify that vulnerability exists, and also to reinforce the fact that what we had seen in our data analysis of votes going negative should be outside of that process, and also should not exist, because we are thinking about a machine talking to a machine talking to a machine. And a machine, unless it's explicitly programmed to decrement, should not decrement, especially in a voting situation. Similar as the way you deposit money into a bank account you mentioned earlier, votes, no different. You only are adding here. And if there's a removal, there needs to be a very good explanation as to why. And that has not been provided, and simply nor is it consistent with how the data is structured and what we've seen in our analysis as to any part of the process that would be consistent with normal or routine legal voting.
Are there any questions?
Can I make one brief, Mr. Chairman,
yes.
one brief note?
Yes.
Just as a point of reference in layman's terms, please understand that the data that your Secretary of State's office is certifying with is the same data that shows these negative decrements, is the same data that they are receiving, is what the New York Times is reporting, is what the networks are reporting. So either the Secretary of State's office is recording and certifying results that have negative errors and fraudulent votes in them, or someone is giving them negative information. We're not here to point fingers. We're just here to tell you that the certification of votes and the votes that were submitted for the state of Georgia have negative swings in them and have decrements in them. And these are errors, and they are not representative for the state of Georgia and how the state of Georgia's voters voted.
And guys, this is exactly why they had to manufacture an insurrection on January the 6th, because this is the information, this is the evidence, the data that those senators who had pledged not to certify the election was going to hear, that was going to confirm why they should not certify the election. And as you just heard those analysts say, what was certified by the Secretary of State was fraudulent through and through, and he knew it. And you're going to also hear further testimony from a poll worker to that effect, as well as more data evidence that should have had the sheriff pulling up. And furthermore, who shows up to an insurrection with their wife and children and no guns? I mean, really, lift the hood and kick the tires. This was the biggest hoax and farce pulled on the American people next to COVID. No, COVID, both of them are neck and neck. Guys, this is why they had to manufacture the insurrection, because they wanted those senators out of the building so they would not hear this, because if they heard this, that election would not have been certified, and the people, not just conservatives, would have learned that they were lied to about Joe Biden winning that election, and they could not allow that. They were okay with only conservatives knowing this information because they have painted us as crazy. That's easy to do. They were okay with that because they had already suppressed the information in the media because of their alliances with all of the Hollywood to social media to the mainstream media, and we're talking Fox News as well.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, may I also add something?
Yes.
So there was a point in that video where we showed, I think it was Richard Barron, who had said that 113,000 votes were cast, 105,000 were adjudicated, right?
Right.
Now, that's not physically possible, which we can prove mathematically, but at the same time, if you adjudicate 105,000 votes, you have to understand from a technological perspective, as we've delved into all the different aspects of how the vote moves along. When you adjudicate a ballot, that old reference, the image that you saw or anything like that, is completely destroyed. It's gone. You can no longer reference that thing. And when you go run a hand recount, like you did in Georgia, you're looking at the printouts of those ballot scans. So at no point did the original voter intent enter into that process once it's destroyed. And that's the one thing I don't really hear people talking about, which is very, very important, is that original ballot that you cast, especially from an absentee point, is destroyed and replaced with a new image with no metadata, no trail, and even from an audit perspective, it would fail because from an audit perspective, they're all using the same account to audit, so you don't know who made that change. You don't know how many times that change was made in the past. And if I had a group of two people, the Republican and Democrat, which used to be three people, but if I had a group of two people that was auditing something, and then they changed that changed the ballot image, and then the other people from the League of Women Voters then audited that exact same ballot, the only thing you would see from the end perspective, data-wise, is that final audit. You would not see any intermediate audit or any intermediate ballot image or the original ballot image. So keep that in mind when we're talking about adjudicated ballots. That should be a very severe thing to have to audit something. And when you're freely saying that there's 105,000 ballots that were audited, either you are saying that there's some kind of impossibility in the auditing process, or that you don't know what an audit means. And this person is in charge of the elections in Fulton County. So I just want
the major point is that if every vote counts, and we're seeing vote swings where there are changes, whether it's one vote, 30,000 votes, 200,000 votes, at what point do you as legislators, as elected officials of your people, start to raise the question, why are my people not being represented? Why are my voters' votes not counting?
And I said audit, I actually meant adjudicate, my bad. I meant adjudicate.
Yeah, we understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your presentation and all of the work and effort that you've put into this. So thank you so much.
The lack of urgency, this makes me want to cry. These are our leaders, guys. These people are our leaders. And these data analysts are clearly like, I can't believe it. Do you not understand that we're telling you that your constituents' votes were not counted, that they've been defrauded, and you up here thanking them like they just presented you a pitch, a PowerPoint presentation pitch, a business pitch or something. All right, guys, so we've just heard from the set of data analysts who had proof, unequivocal. Dude said there was fraud and it was significant. We're talking over 200,000 votes. They clocked the switch. They told us how that the machines are programmed to be able to switch votes at the whim of whomever. They clocked that, got it documented. The Georgia state senators here saw all of this stuff December 30th, 2020. And we went on to have a runoff that was fraudulent, as evidenced by the next clip I'm going to show you of the white hackers who actually broke into the Dominion machines during the runoff early voting sessions that was happening that day.
And the committee members, I respectfully request that you afford just a couple of minutes to Javon Pulitzer. He's just informed me of some very serious new evidence that he's just obtained from a Fulton County voting polling place within the last hour, and I think this committee needs to hear this.
Okay, we'll give, can you do it just a couple of minutes, 2 minutes?
So as we all know, there's multiple teams working on this, and our technology team's into it. And as was broke early in the week and last week about connected devices, at this very moment at a polling location in the county, not only do we now have access through the devices to the poll pad, the system, but we are in. And it's not supposed to have Wi-Fi, and that's not supposed to be able to happen. So we've documented now. It's communicating two ways in real time, meaning it's receiving data and sending data. Should never happen, shouldn't be Wi-Fi. We've now documented it in real time so we can suck down the data. But that's going on right there where everybody's voting. And I just wanted to get it into the record.
Now, these are the white hat hackers who are basically corroborating what we just heard from the data analysts about how vulnerable these Dominion voting machines are. So to prove that they are vulnerable and that people can hack into them and they have all these capabilities to switch votes and all of that stuff, they proved it by hiring some white hackers to go in and do it. This is December 30th, 2020, during the early voting for the Senate runoff election between Warnock and Kelly Loeffler, I believe, right? Early voting was going on that day during the hearing, and they clocked it real time just now, as you just saw. And the gentleman came to report that to get it in the record. Okay, again, where's the sheriff? This is Fulton County, Georgia, on December 30th, 2020.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Jones?
One of those, is it a mobile precinct or is it a...
No, it's a standing building.
Okay.
That this should not happen. Right. And it shouldn't happen in any way, but this is another one in real time. Won't disclose location because every location is being checked, but we've now confirmed it 100%.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator Beach, did you? And now come to Still Beach and Tillery. Did you have a question? Okay, well, Senator Tillery.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. We've heard that there's 3 different types of machines: a scanner, a ballot marking device, and a polling pad.
Right.
Do you know which one it is communicating, or can you tell that? Or
right now, what you heard in the past was coming through the thermostat and stuff. This is now a more direct access way, and so this is coming through the polling pad device where they're checking everything. But now, it only takes one device where you daisy chain them together and do it. The most important thing is that shouldn't be two-waying and even shouldn't be accessible or on, and it's there. Were there any other questions?
Could I ask him one question? What effect could somebody with dishonest purposes, what could that person do given this access that's going on right now in Fulton County?
Statistically, what can be going on when you have an operation like this is as that data is being exchanged and somebody's in it, can actually siphon off that data, modify the data, and feed it right back into the system, or kind of do a pump and dump in real time, right? It's kind of like at home when we all used to have a dial-up and you're connected to the internet and doing what you're doing, and then all your kids get on and the bandwidth goes down and everybody clogs. It creates that kind of atmosphere where not only are you in the system, but then once you get into the machine, you can do stuff in real time, changing its intent. That's what it opens up.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is this still a conspiracy or no? Are you still unconvinced? Do I need to show you more? The Georgia voter should be pissed. Y'all should be going up to the governor's mansion, to the Secretary of State's house. Y'all need to be going to get the sheriff to convene a grand jury and call everybody who was working the polls in Georgia, especially those two ladies who have skated off because they have the right connections right now. But trust and believe, when the Lord begin to pull this back and it's time to reap what you sow, watch those same Democrats those two ladies who pulled those daggone suitcases out of from under those tables and was going hard in the paint to make sure Biden got elected. Trust and believe, they gonna get thrown right under the bus. And from Stacey Abrams and them to go hard in the paint to make sure that Biden get elected, it's gonna be them Negroes getting locked up when it's time to reap what you sow. When the Lord pulls back the cover and vindicates the truth here, because see, time and truth are companions. Time is always going to vindicate the truth and what's always been true, and it's always going to vindicate those who stood 10 toes down for that truth when it was unpopular. Okay, so I don't have to be right here when I'm patient. You don't have to believe me. You don't even have to believe your lying eyes as watching this video of all of this evidence. You don't have to believe me, because time is always going to vindicate it. Time is always going to reveal it. So I'm not a slave to my ego. I will backpedal and booty pop right off of any wrong conclusion I'm on, and will apologize to anyone that I have wrongfully assumed the worst about. But these Georgia Republicans, I just can't with them. They have burned my biscuits. And I want to know, where is the sheriff? The Georgia voters should be pissed. I can't. But honey, there's more.
Whether that be accidental or intentional. Can you explain that process?
Okay. During the recount, I was standing there. There was me, various volunteers throughout the day. As ballots were being scanned, votes would jam up the system. There's a system where it does 4 ballots, and it tells you which ballot to pull and then rescan. As the day went on, the supervisor would pull those 1 ballots that were jamming and stacking them up. At the end of the day, she made the determination to run those entire ballots. They were the QR codes, not the absentee ballots. They were the ones with the QR codes.
And is there any other counties that this happened in where they were concerned about certifying but felt compelled or forced to?
Yes, I was told by many counties that they called, questioned the Secretary of State, and they were told to certify.
Can you tell this committee how many counties that might be?
I talked to personally 8 counties, and out of that, 6 said they were forced to certify.
Can you explain what you mean by forced to certify?
One county was 106 votes off, and the Secretary of State's office told them they must certify that number. Another county, which was a small county, was 2.3% off. They were told they had to recertify. Wow. Another county was off. They questioned it. The Secretary of State said, upload your stuff, let us look at it. They called them back and said, oh, we found a missing batch. And then they magically matched. That's what I was told. I have copies of the emails later on, whatever you need. And those people were willing to do an affidavit.
Can you tell us what steps the Secretary of State took when they came down to Coffee County?
When they came to Coffee County, they came down on a Friday. They told them that Thursday, I believe, it may have been late Wednesday that they were coming. 3 people from the Secretary of State showed up with guns and badges and handcuffs, and 2 Dominion Tech reps. They came with the intent of intimidation. Luckily, the county attorney stayed with the supervisor so that she wasn't by herself. And basically, he said, you want a recount? We'll do a recount. There were no Democrats, no Republicans there to watch this recount. Oh, wow. And the attorney called to an area private school, got a group of sophomores. They sat there and divided the ballots into 100-count batches, and they proceeded to scan them, and they wouldn't scan. The Dominion Tech ran into the problems that Coffee County ran into. The Dominion Tech sat on the floor for 2 hours with a manual trying to figure out why they couldn't get the machines to do what they needed to do.
Where is the sheriff? Why wasn't the sheriff pulling up? Clocking it real time here. Again, to the Never Trumper Republicans and all the other Republicans who were carrying the water and echoing the narrative of the left. Where is the vote? There's no voter fraud. The Democrats and the Republicans have been so committed to this lie and this cover-up, because now it has become a cover-up, because this has been in the public domain for over 3 years. You cannot tell me that all Republicans at all levels didn't know anything about this Georgia hearing or the other hearings that went on, okay? So they've been so committed to this lie, especially the left is so committed to combating this information that, as I mentioned, they got the little fact check going now, right? Everything is fact check because they know that, again, low information, low vibrational, low attention span people, all they need to see is something having had been fact checked and they consider it credible. And furthermore, again, to try to contend and to appear intellectually honest alongside the conservatives, who are often able to produce facts and like to deal in facts and logic. So to try to feign and appear to be on par with their political opponents, they do this whole fact checking thing. So right now, as I said, if you go and fact check or Google Dominion voting machines, you're going to see nothing but quote unquote fact checks from all the media outlets, from New York Times to the BBC to the MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Facebook, Instagram. Everybody's popping up with their fact checks to the contrary of what I'm saying and to the contrary of this hard evidence here. And guess what the fact check always results in? It always results in the Democrat narrative being accurate and the conservative narrative being false. So that should tell you all you need to know, or everything you did not want to know. But again, I want to know, where is the sheriff? Where are the warrants? Why are the Republicans scared? What are they really hiding? Do they hate Trump that much that they will allow the country to go down? If you're listening to this, if you know any lawmakers, send them this video.
A ridiculous amount of evidence, of course, continues to pile up. And what's being done about it? Well, they're having these Georgia Senate subcommittees hearings on the issues. I'd like to say that I'm really hopeful about everything that's happening. This is, of course, that story that we just heard from this woman, this witness, testifying about people showing up with handcuffs to take people in. And that's that video specifically. So look, here's a little bit more about the Dominion voting systems and the adjudication process. This is kind of short. I'm going to play this. This will show how easy it is to take these Dominion votes and just flip them right over to any other candidate on the list.
For context, this is another poll worker here demonstrating how easy it is to switch votes. So she's doing this a little tongue-in-cheek here to show you again, how trash these machines are and how much of a joke that they are and how much of a joke that we were actually utilizing them and how they were utilized in the runoff and probably utilized in 2022 and probably will be utilized in 2024 because, again, the Republicans' dereliction of duty because they are scared of the Democrats and are scared to be called racist.
No, wait just a minute. I want to go and I think I want to vote for Jason Shaw. They didn't vote that ballot a while ago. There wasn't nothing there. I think we need to vote for him. And I'm going to complete it.
I love her accent. That's
Confirm,
so cute.
ballot saved, move to next ballot. Okay. So it pulls up the next ballot that needs to be adjudicated.
So you made a vote for someone where someone did not vote.
I did, didn't I?
And you're the election supervisor?
I'm the election supervisor.
Wow.
I am the person that sits and does the adjudication. Yes, sir?
Go back to the Trump and Biden race and decide, since both are marked, you just count one of them and not count the other one? Can you decide?
Let's see. Yep, sure can.
Wow.
I think I want to vote for Biden. Let's let Biden win this one.
Wow.
So what you
that easy.
So you.
But I decided this Al, he don't deserve no votes. Let's not let nobody vote for that. And complete. Okay.
Man.
Well, here's another one.
So if it's that simple, if it's that easy to just change any of these votes that you want, then why not?
I represent a number of these individuals that came forth. I have a list of them, military, on to first-time voters, family members. We can't bring them all in here. We've got a major problem. I'm now having to represent pro bono people that have been terminated for coming before this honorable body to follow an oath to do their duty. We can't have that in this country. That's something you'd see in Saddam Hussein's Iran or something. They whisk you off if you have a differing opinion. You know, they say that nothing good happens after midnight, and I think that summarizes this entire election. Donald Trump won Georgia. He lost, apparently, major cities in swing states in the middle of the night on one category of vote, these mail-in votes. We've got a major problem here in Georgia. My research, which is ongoing, and I'll tender that to the committee members, I choose not to make it public right now. For fear of retaliation as well. We've got a major problem in the Secretary of State's office. I'm not willing to say there's impropriety. I'm not taking that jump. But it's going to take some smart people on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat, to come together and solve this. We have an administration there that's never handled this massive of a presidential election. First time that they've handled it. We've got problems. Let's smart people come together and let's figure out a solution. And this is coming from someone who's not a Republican or Democrat, just a rational Georgian trying to come up with some solutions. I've enjoyed working with the Giuliani legal team. They're very credible people, all these experts. This is not some farcical conspiracy. Very legitimate people, very top-notch experts trying to get it right. I'm asking you to do the same. Thank you.
All right, party people, so there you have it. I have presented the evidence that I had, and what I need you to do right now is drop down in the comments and tell me what you think. Is this still a right-wing conspiracy or not? Or has the evidence made you go, was this revelatory to you? Did you not know that any of this existed? I'm kind of banking if you are a Democrat voter, you probably did not know any of this existed. And you're probably a little salty, I'm hoping. And you want to do something about it, I'm hoping. Right? Yeah, so if you are conservative, share this video. If you know a lawmaker, please share this video. And share it with all the Democrat voters that you know, because they need to be aware of this information and how they were bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led astray in 2020, thinking that Joe Biden actually won. And actually, I think you guys are a little bit more, smarter to know that he really didn't win. And you guys have just been going along with the narrative to get along, right? Nevertheless, the truth is out. All right, but before I go, guys, let me take a few moments to connect some dots here that may just in case they were missed or seemed disjointed to the rest of the video, in the very beginning of the video, I started with a definition of a psychological tactic called accusation in a mirror. And basically, accusation in a mirror simply means accusations or a false claim that accuses the target of something that the perpetrator is doing or intends to do. So in other words, it's kind of like it's gaslighting, right? It is projecting. It is accusing someone of something that you're actually doing. Then after that definition, Hillary Clinton comes on the screen and she basically demonstrates this concept, right? It's very common in political debate or among political opponents, if you will, this particular tactic. And the Democrats do it a lot. They always are, often are, I would say always at this point, are projecting onto conservatives what they actually do. Okay? And so the irony of this clip of Hillary Clinton, if you notice, she was emphasizing state legislatures. And what has this video been about? State legislatures hearing evidence of voter fraud. Right now, the U.S. Constitution has given powers to the states for a variety of things so as to protect us from federal tyranny, which we are headed towards if we do not do something about what we've just seen here. So Hillary here is speaking, launching this campaign to basically dismantle and undermine state legislatures 2 years after 2020 in preparation for 2024, right? Now, why is she doing that? Why is she so pressed about state legislatures' potential to steal elections? Wherever did she get that from? She got it from 2020 when they were on the precipice of being found out. And she also got it from the fact that she is accusing in the mirror, the accusation in the mirror tactic. She's projecting. She is gaslighting because that is what they do. They steal elections. It's just so ironic to see how far ahead that they are thinking and how much chess that they're actually playing. So they saw how they had to run the insurrection play to get those senators out of there so that the state legislatures could not be certified those elections. They ran that play. And so now, to prevent that from ever happening again, we now need to create a whole campaign to go after the state legislature so that we can make sure that we win 2024. Because, see, there are too many eyes now are on their cheating operation. And quiet as it's kept, 2022, in my opinion, was also a product of voter fraud. Because we hadn't fixed 2020. And I cramped to understand. Everyone is saying, oh, there wasn't a red wave. There wasn't a red wave because they were cheating. And Republicans are so dumb to have this evidence and to not even put that together, to not even seek to investigate the elections from 2022. Georgia's still using them same machines. They were using them right after the 2020 during the runoff, as we just saw from the video there. What is my point and what is the connection between Hillary Clinton on that video, gaslighting and projecting, talking about protecting the voters from the state legislatures who were going to steal the elections, and this clip that I'm about to show you that is going to prove the intent of Donald Trump calling all of his supporters to the Capitol on January the 6th. Why did he do that? Simply because he was going to present evidence of what you just seen, only one state, that plus the 5-6 other ones, going to present that evidence to those senators and to that body, proving that there was indeed election fraud. That's why the people were there. That is why he called it, not for no freaking insurrection, but for the people to come to support him as he presented that evidence and to also support show support to those senators so that they would have the confidence to go against the grain and to not certify those election results. And we were there to say, guys, we're with you. We see you. We've seen the evidence. That is why the people were there. They sat and saw all of this video evidence, plus the other 5 states' video evidence that's out there that the mainstream media would not broadcast. That is why the people were there. That is the connection that I don't see anyone making when they're talking about January the 6th. They're talking about it as though it was a real organic event, and that there were just some rogue Trump supporters who were wilding out that day and wanting to be white supremacist, nationalist extremist. It's a lie, guys. And I am stunned that no Republican had the sense enough to make that case on behalf of at least the Trump supporters. You ain't have to like Donald Trump, but you could have made that case for the Trump supporters, right? You could have said that for the Trump supporters, because that's why the Trump supporters were there. They came because they saw the evidence and they came to support him to share this evidence. That was the plan, as this clip that I'm about to play is going to prove. So it can now, hopefully this video will put to rest the lie about January the 6th, why the people were there, why it happened, and why there was a need for the Democrats to run the insurrection play, because that's what it was, a play. And it worked, and it is still working. So the truth is now out here for anyone who wants to be intellectually honest. And with that, I want to thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, please share this video. If you care about this country, if you care about your freedom. Deuces.
Talk about this. This is Kyle Becker again talking about the Electoral College. Trump's team is aiming to present evidence during a potential congressional debate on January 6th if lawmakers in the House and Senate object to the state's Electoral College votes. This evidence is being described as specific. Fasten your seatbelts, America. We will have a chance in front of the American people next week to present these cases, all of the evidences of fraud. Campaign advisor Jason Miller told Newsmax.